I need to share something Jesus showed me last night about what happens to our souls when we leave this life. And I'll tell you now, what he revealed about how long we remain connected to this world may challenge everything you assume about eternity. I've been emotional all morning because what he showed me wasn't only comforting, it was overwhelming. It changes everything. Some of you might already be thinking, Jonathan has finally lost it. He's played Jesus for so long that now he thinks he's receiving divine messages. But I want to be clear, this wasn't about The Chosen. It wasn't about the season we just finished filming, or the next one we're working on. This was Jesus speaking directly to my heart about one of humanity's deepest questions. To explain why this even happened, I need to take you back to 3 weeks ago when I received a letter from a woman named Sarah. Her mother had recently passed away in her sleep, and Sarah was struggling with questions that were keeping her up at night. She wrote, "Jonathan, I keep wondering if my mom's soul is still here somehow, watching over me. How long do souls remain near the earth after death?" That question hit me hard because I realized I didn't have a clear answer. I've portrayed Jesus for years. I've read scripture more times than I can count. I've had countless conversations with pastors and scholars. But on this specific question, the journey of the soul after death, I found myself offering vague reassurance rather than meaningful truth. And Sarah's message wasn't the first of its kind. Ever since The Chosen became popular, people have been writing to me with their deepest spiritual concerns, as if I have a direct line to heaven. Normally, I redirect them to speak with their pastor or spiritual mentor. But Sarah's question stayed with me. It followed me everywhere. I began thinking about loved ones I've lost. My grandfather who taught me the foundations of faith, a college friend who died too soon. Where are they now? What state are their souls in? Is there a period of waiting between death and heaven? Are they aware of us? How long does that transition take? These thoughts consumed me. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m. thinking about eternity. During filming, even while acting out scenes as Jesus, I found myself reflecting on how Jesus responded to death and what he taught about the afterlife. But even in scripture, some details remain mysterious. I didn't want theories anymore, I wanted truth. The weight of not knowing became heavy. I was playing the role of the Son of God, yet people were asking me to answer questions that touched on their deepest fears and hopes. I felt unprepared, almost fraudulent. How could I portray Jesus and still feel unsure about something so important? My prayers began to change. Instead of asking for help with the show or with my performance, I started asking God to help me understand what truly happens to our souls after death. Not simplified explanations, not debates, but genuine truth, something that could bring comfort to people like Sarah. 3 weeks passed and I still had no clarity. I read every book I could find on near-death experiences. I studied every biblical passage on heaven and the afterlife. I even contacted theologians I trusted. But nothing brought the peace I was searching for. I felt like I was wandering through a desert, getting more desperate every day. Then last Tuesday night before going to sleep, I prayed with a kind of urgency I hadn't felt before. I said, "Jesus, if you're listening, I need to understand what happens to our souls after death. Not just for me but for everyone who's grieving and afraid. Please show me." Then I fell asleep. What happened after that didn't feel like a dream. It felt more real than anything I've ever experienced. I found myself standing in a meadow more beautiful than anything you could imagine. Wildflowers gently swaying, a soft breeze moving through the air, and a light that seemed to shine from everywhere at once. The atmosphere was filled with peace and love. And then I saw him walking toward me. Jesus looked exactly as I had always pictured him, yet more alive, more radiant than any portrayal could ever show. His eyes carried a depth of compassion that made me want to kneel, yet his smile felt so familiar that it was like seeing a close friend. He walked toward me with open arms, and I instantly sensed he had heard my quiet, desperate prayer. "Jonathan," he said, his voice calm and comforting. "You've been carrying a heavy weight, asking questions that keep you up at night. You want to understand what happens to the soul after death because you care deeply about others and want to help them find peace." I nodded as tears formed, realizing he knew exactly why I sought these answers. "Before I continue, I want you to know that wherever you are watching from, whatever time it is, you're not here by accident. Comment below where you're tuning in from and the time because I believe you're listening to this for a reason." As I was saying, he motioned for me to walk with him through a beautiful meadow. As we moved forward, he began explaining. "The question you're asking, how long a soul remains here after death, comes from misunderstanding time and eternity. Let me show you what truly happens when someone moves from earth to heaven." His words carried clarity and kindness, and I held on to every one. "When a person takes their final breath," Jesus said, Their soul does not linger in an in-between space. There is no waiting area, no confusion, no delay. The transition happens instantly, faster than thought. One moment they're in their earthly body, the next they are fully alive in my presence, more alive than they ever felt on earth. I paused, taking in what he said because it challenged many of my assumptions. But Lord, I asked, what about the stories of people sensing their loved ones after they've passed? The dreams, the signs, the feeling that someone is still close. Are those real? He smiled gently like a patient teacher. Those experiences are real, Jesus replied. But they don't mean the soul is still on earth. When someone enters my presence, they immediately experience complete joy and wholeness. But love reaches across the separation between earth and heaven. Love doesn't end with physical death. It becomes even stronger and more pure. He looked at me directly. What people interpret as their loved one being nearby is actually something far more meaningful. It is the eternal nature of love itself. Deep love becomes part of the spiritual foundation of existence. It doesn't disappear, it transforms. As we continued walking, he explained something that filled me with understanding. Souls do not remain on earth, he said. They're not watching over their families the way people imagine. They are experiencing heaven in its fullness. But their love for those on earth becomes part of my love for them. Then he said something that made everything come together. Jonathan, when someone feels the presence of a loved one who has passed, they're not sensing a soul stuck between realms. They're experiencing the way perfect love operates across dimensions. The person who has passed is loving through me. Their purified love becomes part of how I comfort and guide those they cared for. I was beginning to grasp it, but still needed clarification. So when Sarah feels her mother's presence, I asked, it's not because her mother's soul is still here? Jesus nodded. Exactly. Sarah's mother is fully alive in heaven, experiencing joy beyond what she ever knew. But her love for Sarah is now perfected. Through me, that love flows back to Sarah as comfort and peace. He continued, the moment someone dies, they understand everything they couldn't understand before. They see how every challenge had purpose, how every loving action mattered forever, and how their story fit into my larger design. There is no regret, no unfinished business, and no desire to return. They are complete in a way they never were while living on earth. Then he shared something that deeply moved me. Those who have passed do not miss earth, he said. They have found what earth was always pointing them toward, perfect union with me. They don't want to return because they've discovered the fulfillment they longed for. But their love remains active through me. He paused with compassion. This is why people dream of those they've lost, why they feel unexpected comfort in grief, why they sense direction when facing difficulty. It isn't a soul lingering, it is love working through divine channels. They are fully present in heaven, and their love remains active on earth. Then he said something remarkable. Time does not operate the same way in eternity. What feels like years of separation to the living feels like moments to those in heaven. From their experience, they have just arrived. And they know they will soon be reunited with everyone they love. What feels long to you is only a brief moment to them. I sat on a nearby rock, overwhelmed by the clarity of his words. So when people ask how long a soul stays here after death, the answer is simple: they don't stay. They move instantly into perfect joy, while their love continues working through you. Jesus sat beside me and nodded. Now you're beginning to understand how love extends across eternity. He gave me an example. When a mother dies and her child later senses her presence, it is not the mother lingering. She is in perfect joy with me. But her love becomes part of my love for her child. I use that love to comfort and guide in ways that feel familiar and personal. The meaning of his teaching was profound. So grief and the sense of connection are both valid, I said slowly. People can mourn the physical separation, yet still experience a spiritual bond, because love is eternal. Jesus smiled. Exactly. Death ends the physical relationship but transforms the spiritual one into something even more powerful. Then he stood and began walking again, his pace steady. Jonathan, people have been asking the wrong question. Instead of wondering how long souls remain after death, they should ask how quickly they enter perfect joy, and how endlessly their love continues. He paused. Death is not a long drawn-out process of separation. It is an immediate shift from limited life to unlimited life, Jesus explained. The very moment someone's earthly life ends, they are instantly in my presence. Fully whole, fully restored, experiencing joy that no human language can fully describe. There is no wandering, no confusion, no slow adjustment. They become more alive than they ever felt on earth, and they immediately understand that everything they lived through was preparation for this moment. As we walked, Jesus described a scene that was overwhelming in its clarity. Think of the happiest reunion you've ever known. Multiply that infinitely. That is what happens the instant someone moves from earth to heaven. They are welcomed immediately by loved ones who arrived before them. They enter my presence right away and receive understanding and peace beyond anything they knew on earth. He continued, but here is something that will comfort anyone who grieves. Even though the departed experience perfect joy, they do not forget those they love on earth. In fact, their love becomes more pure and perfect than it ever could be while they lived in human bodies. That perfected love, he said, becomes part of his own love for those still alive. I began realizing why this understanding could completely reshape how people think about death and grief. So when people feel guilty about moving forward after a loss or fear they are forgetting someone they are misunderstanding, Jesus said with emphasis. The departed want their loved ones to live, to find joy, to cherish each day. They are not looking back with sadness or wishing to return to earth. They look with perfect love, encouraging their loved ones, celebrating their victories, and offering comfort through me. They have become part of the great cloud of witnesses, he added, supporting and strengthening those still running the race of life. Then Jesus shared something that made the message even clearer. The question of how long souls stay here after death assumes that death creates distance. It does not. Death removes distance. The instant someone enters eternity, they become closer to their loved ones than when they were alive because they are no longer limited by physical boundaries. He looked at me directly. Think about it. On earth a person can only be in one place at one time. They can comfort only one person at a time. But in my presence, their love becomes unlimited. Through me they can be part of comforting all their loved ones at once, wherever and whenever comfort is needed. The beauty of his explanation began to settle deeply within me. So the mother worried about leaving her children, the father afraid of not protecting his family, the friend hoping to keep supporting those they love. None of them need to fear, I said. Because death actually expands their ability to love. Jesus smiled warmly. Exactly. Then he continued teaching. The first important truth is that consciousness does not fade at death. It expands beyond measure. The person becomes more aware than they ever were while limited by physical brains and bodies. The second truth is that death does not end relationships. It perfects them. Every earthly relationship is only a shadow of what it becomes in eternity. Parental love, marital bonds, deep friendships. All become stronger and purer when freed from earthly limitations. The third truth is that time, as you understand it on earth, does not exist in heaven. What feels like years of separation to those living feels like moments to the departed. They know reunion is coming soon and wait with perfect peace and joy. The fourth truth, he said with a tone of wonder, is that death reveals the eternal significance of every act of love. Every kind word, every gentle gesture, every moment of compassion becomes a visible part of eternity. Nothing done in love is forgotten. The fifth truth is that those who have passed can finally see the larger purpose of their lives. They understand how struggles shaped them, how pain produced growth, and how their actions influenced others in ways they never recognized. This brings them great peace. The sixth truth is that heaven is not a static place of rest. It is a vibrant realm of creativity, growth, and meaningful purpose. No one is sitting on clouds. They engage in fulfilling work, joyful creation, and purposeful service using all their gifts in ways earth never allowed. The seventh truth is that learning and growth do not stop at death. They increase. Mysteries that confused people become clear, long-standing questions are answered, and they discover truths about the universe, about love, and about me that earthly minds could not hold. The eighth truth, Jesus said gently, is that everyone who enters my presence is instantly freed from every earthly burden. Depression lifts. Anxiety disappears. Pain ends. Emotional wounds are healed completely. They become the person they were always meant to be. The ninth truth is that those in heaven can see the spiritual reality behind events on earth. They understand how I am working in the lives of their loved ones. They see how hardships are woven into greater meaning and how each prayer is answered in the right way and time. And the 10th truth, Jesus concluded with joy, is that reunion between the living and the departed is not something far off. It has already begun. Each time someone feels comfort from a loved one who passed, that is a preview of eternity. The connection is active now. The reunion is already underway. I tried to take in everything he was saying when he placed his hand on my shoulder. Jonathan, now you see why I needed you to learn this. People carry unnecessary fear and guilt about death because they misunderstand how immediate and perfect the transition is. They grieve as if their loved ones are lost or suffering, when in reality those loved ones have reached what they were always longing for. But I want you to understand something deeper, he said softly. I am not showing you these truths only to comfort the grieving, though that matters. I'm showing you so people can recognize what a profound gift life is, and how every moment carries eternal value. Then he spoke with a love that felt unmistakable. When people understand that death is an immediate transition into perfect joy, their approach to life changes. Fear no longer controls them. They begin living with purpose. They stop delaying happiness and start embracing it. They stop taking relationships for granted and begin valuing them deeply. When someone truly understands these truths, Jesus explained, they realize that saying goodbye to someone who passes is not really goodbye, it is, see you soon. And they recognize that the love they share becomes part of the eternal fabric of existence. They understand that every act of kindness, every expression of love, and every moment of joy helps shape eternal reality. Jesus stopped walking and looked at me with eyes full of compassion. He said the people reading Sarah's letter, and those wondering about their loved ones who have passed, need to hear this clearly. Their loved ones are not stuck in a sad, uncertain place. They are experiencing joy beyond anything imaginable, while their love continues to reach them through me every single day. Your grandmother, who passed last year, is not wandering through your home or longing for the past. Jesus continued, she is more alive now than she ever was, and her love for you has become part of my love for you. When you feel that sudden comfort during difficult moments or sense guidance during major decisions, that is her perfected love working through my infinite love. Then Jesus said something that brought me to tears right there in that peaceful meadow. The question is not how long souls remain after death. The real question is how quickly they enter perfect joy and how endlessly their love continues to bless those they left behind. Death does not create distance. It changes the nature of the connection. It does not end love. It completes love. Then Jesus added something even more surprising, his voice full of wonder. The souls in heaven are not waiting and counting days until they reunite with their families. From their perspective, reunion is already happening. Through their perfected love flowing through me, they are more present in their loved ones' lives than they ever were while alive on earth. Jesus walked more slowly, and I sensed we were nearing the emotional center of our conversation. Jonathan, what I am about to tell you may be the most important thing you ever hear about life, death, and love. He stopped and faced me fully. Souls do not stay here after death because they do not need to. Love continues the work completely. When someone passes, Jesus said, his voice filled with emotion, they do not have to remain tied to earth to continue loving their family. Their perfected love becomes part of my love, and through me, it reaches their family more powerfully than it ever could while they were limited by physical bodies. Death does not weaken their love. It increases it beyond measure. I was openly crying, overwhelmed by the beauty of what he was explaining. People who fear their loved ones are lost, alone, or sad have it entirely wrong. Jesus nodded, tears in his own eyes. Completely wrong. The departed are more connected, more joyful, and more present than they ever were before. Then Jesus said something so beautiful it nearly broke my heart. Every person who enters my presence becomes part of how I care for people still on earth. A mother's love becomes part of how I care for her children. A father's protection becomes part of how I protect his family. A friend's loyalty becomes part of how I comfort the lonely. Jesus held my hands and I felt endless love flowing through him. This is why people sometimes dream of loved ones who have passed, why they feel their presence during challenges, and why they sense approval when making choices their loved ones would have appreciated. It is not because those souls are stuck between worlds. It is because their love has been perfected and now works through my perfect love. Souls in heaven do not miss earth because they have reached what earth was always pointing toward, Jesus explained. But they do not forget earth either. They see it with eternal understanding and use their perfected love to help guide their family through life. They become part of my heavenly host, working with me to bring comfort and direction to those who need it. Then Jesus explained why all of this mattered so deeply. People have been living with a misunderstanding of death, one that steals their peace. They think death creates a painful separation. But the truth is that death creates a transformation. The relationship does not end, it becomes complete. Love does not fade, it becomes eternal. When people grasp this truth, Jesus continued, everything changes. They stop fearing death and start appreciating life. They stop grieving as if their loved ones are gone and start celebrating that their loved ones are safe and whole. They stop feeling guilty about happiness and begin to understand that their joy brings joy to those in heaven. Jesus looked at me with such deep love that I felt overwhelmed. This is why I needed you to see this, Jonathan. Not just so you could answer Sarah's question, but so you could help others understand that death is not the enemy they think it is. Death opens the door to everything beautiful, and love is the key. The souls of the departed do not linger on earth because they do not need to, Jesus explained with growing clarity. They are immediately welcomed into my presence, where they experience perfect joy, perfect understanding, and perfect love. But this love does not stay in heaven. It flows through me to comfort and guide those still on earth in ways far more powerful than physical presence ever could. So when people ask how long a soul remains here after death, tell them this, Jesus said firmly, the soul does not stay here at all. It goes instantly to perfect joy. But love stays forever, working through me to bless those left behind in ways more beautiful than any earthly relationship could offer. Death ends the physical connection, but it begins the perfect one. As Jesus finished, something opened inside me. It wasn't sadness, it was deep relief and joy. Every fear I had about death, every question about what happens after, every worry about being separated from loved ones was washed away by what he revealed. I fell to my knees in that meadow. Lord, I said through tears, this changes everything. Every funeral I attended, every person I tried to comfort, every night I worried about eternity, I never understood the full truth. And the truth is far more beautiful than I imagined. Jesus knelt beside me and placed an arm around my shoulders, letting me cry in peace. Jonathan, he said gently, this is why you were chosen to portray me on screen. Not because you know everything, but because your heart feels people's pain and celebrates their joy. When you share this truth, others will feel the same relief you feel right now. They will realize they have been carrying unnecessary burdens. I looked up at him through tears. All the people who have written to me asking about their loved ones no longer need to wonder if they are okay. They do not need to fear whether their family members are watching over them. They can trust that death carried them into perfect joy, while their love continues to reach them through you. Exactly, Jesus said, joy in his voice. They do not need to feel guilty for being happy or moving forward, even finding love again after loss. Souls in heaven are not sad about life continuing. They celebrate every moment of joy their loved ones experience. They want the living to live fully because they now understand how meaningful life truly is. Jesus helped me to my feet and we continued walking through the meadow. The reason this truth touched you so deeply, he explained, is because it shows how perfect my plan is for love, life, and death. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. Every relationship, every connection, and every bond of love becomes part of the eternal structure of reality. Think about it, Jesus said with enthusiasm. Every person who has entered my presence becomes part of how I care for those still living on earth. A grandmother's wisdom, a father's strength, a friend's loyalty, a spouse's devotion. All of these now contribute to my infinite love as it reaches back to guide, comfort, and support those who need it most. I began realizing the full meaning behind this revelation. When people sense the presence of their loved ones or feel comfort and guidance that seems personal and familiar, they are not imagining it. They are experiencing perfected love operating through divine channels. Jesus nodded with energy. You're beginning to understand the beautiful complexity of how love works across dimensions. Then he paused and looked directly at me. And here's what may be the most beautiful part, he added. The joy souls experience in heaven is not reduced by their love for those on earth. Instead, it is increased by their ability to love more completely. They are not divided between heavenly joy and earthly affection. Their earthly love has become part of their heavenly joy. Jesus placed his hands on my shoulders and looked into my eyes. This is what I need you to share with Sarah and anyone like her. Their loved ones who have passed are not lingering sadly on earth, missing their former lives. They are experiencing joy beyond understanding, while their love for their earthly families has been perfected and now works through me in ways far more effective and beautiful than anything they could offer while alive. The emotion of that moment overwhelmed me. I realized I was being given a truth that would change how people think about life, death, and love. The responsibility was intense, but so was the joy of knowing that this truth could bring peace to people who live with unnecessary fear and grief. Jesus, I said, my voice shaking, how do I share this truth in a way that honors its meaning? How do I help people understand that death is not separation but transformation, not an ending but a beginning, not loss but the perfection of love? He smiled with such gentleness that I felt completely supported and prepared for the task. You share it the way you are feeling it right now, Jesus said with tears of joy, with a heart opened by beauty, with the relief of discovering that reality is more wonderful than you ever hoped. When people see your genuine emotion, they'll recognize its truth. They'll feel the same relief you're feeling. Then Jesus said something I knew I would remember forever. Souls who have passed do not need people on earth to hold on to grief as proof of love. They need people to hold on to joy to honor their memory. They want their loved ones to live fully, love deeply, and trust completely that connections formed through love are eternal and unbreakable. Every time someone on earth experiences happiness, the souls in heaven celebrate, Jesus continued. Every time someone finds peace after loss, heaven rejoices. Every time someone loves again after heartbreak, the departed are cheering because they understand that love grows rather than divides. Opening your heart to new love does not diminish old love, it honors it. As the experience began to fade, Jesus shared a final truth that completed my understanding. Jonathan, the question of how long souls stay here after death comes from love. People don't want to lose their connection with those who have passed. Tell them they do not lose that connection. It doesn't break, it becomes perfect. Death doesn't end the relationship, Jesus said firmly. It elevates it from earthly limits to heavenly perfection. The love continues. The connection remains. The care persists. And now it all flows through my limitless love and power. It isn't less than before, it is infinitely more. Jesus took my hands once more and I felt all the love, truth and comfort he had shared settle deeply in my heart. When you wake up, he said, you will remember every word of this. You'll feel the same peace and joy you feel right now. And you will know with absolute certainty that this truth can transform how people think about life, death and love. Souls don't stay on earth because they don't need to. Love does the work perfectly. Their perfected love, flowing through my perfect love, reaches their families more effectively than any physical presence ever could. Death does not reduce love. It magnifies it. This truth will free people from the fear of death and help them live with greater joy. I felt myself being gently pulled back from that peaceful meadow and toward waking consciousness. But the peace, joy, and truth Jesus shared came with me. As I shifted from that supernatural encounter to normal reality, I knew my life had been completely changed. I had been entrusted with a truth that would bring comfort to many grieving hearts. When I woke, I was crying, tears not of sadness but of deep relief and joy. Everything Jesus had shown me about death, souls, and love felt more real than the room around me. I knew instantly that this was not just a dream. It was a divine encounter meant to answer not only my questions, but the questions of all who fear death or grieve loss. The first thing I did was reach for my phone and begin typing notes, trying to record every detail. As I wrote, I felt the same peace and certainty I had felt in that meadow. This truth was not just for me. It was for Sarah. For anyone who has wondered about loved ones who have passed. For everyone who fears death or struggles with grief. I realized that this encounter answered not only the question of how long souls stay after death, but many others. Are my loved ones okay? Do they remember me? Are they watching over me? Do they want me to be happy? The answer to all of these is yes, beautifully and perfectly yes, but in a way far more profound than most people imagine. Throughout the day, I saw everything differently. Every person I encountered, I thought about how their relationships would be perfected in eternity. Every act of love I witnessed, I understood as part of eternal reality. Every moment of joy, I recognized as something that brought happiness to souls in heaven who loved me. Life felt more precious and death felt less frightening. The truth Jesus shared has practical meaning for how we live. We can stop fearing death because it brings immediate perfect joy. We can stop feeling guilty for happiness after loss because our joy brings joy to heaven. We can stop fearing goodbyes because love never truly says goodbye, it transforms into something greater. We can live with intention, knowing that every relationship matters forever. Every act of love creates lasting reality. Every connection becomes part of eternity. Death does not end what truly matters. It perfects it. This should move us to love more courageously, live more fully, and trust more deeply in the goodness of God's design. Now I understand why Jesus chose to reveal this to me. It wasn't because I am special or because I portray him on screen. It was because he knew I would share it sincerely, with the same joy and relief I felt in that moment. He trusted me to deliver this message to those who urgently need it. People like Sarah, who struggle with questions about their loved ones who have passed. So, I want to take a moment to pray for everyone watching this video, especially those grieving the loss of someone dear to them. Father God, thank you for revealing the comforting truth about what happens when our souls move from this world into heaven. Thank you for showing us that death is not separation but transformation, not an ending but completion, not loss but the fulfillment of love's journey. Lord, I pray for every person who carries fear about death, those who wonder whether their loved ones are all right, who question if the bonds of love continue beyond this life. Give them the same peace you gave me in that meadow. Help them understand that their loved ones did not remain here in sorrow, but were welcomed instantly into perfect joy in your presence. I pray for those who feel guilty for finding happiness after loss, thinking that moving forward somehow disrespects the memory of the one they loved. Remind them that the souls in heaven celebrate every moment of earthly joy, that happiness honors those who have passed, and that living fully is the most meaningful way to cherish the love they shared. Father, help us live differently because of this truth. Help us love more boldly, knowing that love becomes eternal. Help us embrace each day with more purpose, knowing life is fragile but meaningful. Help us face death without fear, trusting that it leads immediately to perfect joy, and that our relationships with those we love are transformed, not ended. For Sarah and everyone like her who wrote to me with questions about eternity, I pray that this truth settles deeply in their hearts. Their loved ones are more alive now than ever before, experiencing joy beyond imagination, while their perfected love flows through you back to earth in countless beautiful ways. They don't need to fear or wonder. They can rest in the assurance of your perfect plan for love, life, and eternity. Thank you, Jesus, for loving us enough to reveal these truths, for caring about our fears and questions, and for showing us that reality is far more beautiful than we could imagine. Help us carry this understanding with grace and joy, sharing it with others who need to know that death is not the enemy they assume, but the doorway to everything beautiful. In your precious name, amen. You are loved beyond measure, and so are the ones you miss. They are not lost at all. They are found. They are whole. They are restored. And their love for you continues forever. If this message touched your heart, please subscribe. I share these experiences and spiritual insights often, and I would love to hear from you in the comments. Feel free to share your own story about sensing the presence of a loved one who has passed.